even though it was like a 4-hour trip. But I should add, like, there was a whole generation before Daniel and I even came up. A lot of breakers, a lot of DJs, and Canberra was well known for its graffiti artists as well.
Yes.
And there was a handful of rappers like doing their thing in Canberra, like generation before us, and even our peers. But yeah, I feel like Daniel and I were the kind of first to really venture out of the city, and Sydney was the closest place. And yeah, it's funny, that tape we were just talking about, I had it and I went to the lounge. Shout out to Blaze. Blaze was working. I had heard of Blaze because he had the Vapors magazine, and
Yes.
he was a writer and DJ, and he was working at the shop. And I took the tape to him. I was like, "Oh yeah, I make music too," which was all right to say back then, because it was like no one was. Now everyone, you can't say it now. Everyone's
now it's
like,
okay,
all
right, you're a rapper as well. Yeah, I
Let
get
me just
it.
shove it in the box over there. But he was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then he played it, and he was like, "Oh wow, this is mad." And I said, "Oh, you can have it." And he's like, "Oh, let me swap you." And he gave me a VHS of some festival that was happening in Campbelltown or something, and Death Wish Cast was playing, the original 046, Noble Savages, and yeah, it was just like live footage, and I took it home. I was like, wow, this is crazy. So that was
and that would have been dope as well to, I don't know, just see other dudes smashing it.
Yeah, definitely. Because again, this is before the net, and so you wouldn't know what half of these people look like. You'd only see them in a magazine or at a gig, or even, that's why I feel like blessed that we lived through the period of record stores, because they were like real hubs.
Yeah.
You'd go there and you'd actually meet people, hang out the whole day, meet people the first time. Like, oh, are you so-and-so? Yeah. And yeah, it was just a great period. And yeah, Blaze was the first connect, and then I don't know how, but then I connected with Sleepy Monk and Mr. Clean and Angel, rest in peace, and of course Ill Pickle, rest in peace as well. And so like Urban Poets. So there was like a little collective that were heavily influenced by East Coast hip hop, which we were as well. And we connected. So every time we came to Sydney, we'd connect with them on a music level. But I also had a crew, KOA, who were like writers, and they lived here. They were like from West Ryde and things like that, and they were like crims and rioters and street dudes. So Sydney has always been like the home away from home.
Yeah, 100%, man. And it's funny because particularly back then as well, the scene would have been real small. So once you get into one crew, you sort of start knowing a lot of things. Who's beefing with who? Well, that sort of shit.
Well, that's the funny thing, because we coming from Canberra, we were never involved in the beef. We'd start to travel to Sydney, and then later on Melbourne and Adelaide and things like that. And you kind of link with people, and then you start talking about other people, and they'll be like, "Oh no, we don't." We don't mess with them. And
you're like, okay,
cool. But they're cool. So I feel in the early days we got a lot of passes because we were like
weren't in it.
Yeah, we were just the guys from Canberra.
Yeah, dope. What about like first, you say Blaze and that, and I think that Blaze, so Parallax, that was the first.
Yeah, Parallax View, that was a label that was run by Blaze and Dr. Fibes.
Dr. Fibes, yeah. So how was that? Because I mean, ultimately, you got your grant. Actually, speaking of the grant, because grants are a big thing now, and it's a business now. In a very good way, right?
Yeah, for all those people like get onto it, you might get knocked back a couple of times, but those grants are there for you.
Yeah, 100%.
To do your thing. So just keep doing it.
Keep smashing them. But how was the grant process back then? Or was that a bit of a fluke?
To be honest, I don't know, because a guy that was looking after us at that time was kind of helping us out. He filled it out. So I don't know what the process was.
You're just like, cassettes on the shelf.
Yeah, that's it. I was just thinking, Impact Records, cassettes, man, whatever you want, And, money wasn't a factor either. Like, I mean, obviously money helps.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like, so we're not making, because all the money went back.
Yep.
And that wasn't a problem, And that was the first time we got to work in a proper studio as well.
Which man, I keep saying to people as well, which is back then is crazy. Like when you're in a studio,
Yeah.
like
There were no setups back then.
There was
Unless
no
you
home
had
stuff.
like decks and a mic, and
Maybe
you just recorded it straight to tape. It wasn't like you didn't have programs, and it was very rare. I mean, you had samplers and stuff.
Yep. Drum machines and shit.
Yeah,
like that.
drum machines, of course. But to put your vocals down, you pretty much had to go to a proper studio.
A proper studio.
And then you had to
100%.
pay hourly rates, and so you had to be on like super prepared. Not like nowadays, you just go there and people just smoke and party and this and that.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Like one more hour, better start doing the song. Then it was like 10 o'clock. There, bang, trying to knock them out. Like this and that. Rush.
Whole
rush.
EP in
In
one
4
session.
hours. Man,
Yeah.
I'm paying $600 for this, man. Like, stop fucking around. Let's do it.
So how would it work out though? Like how would you go? Like how would was that just like, yo, I'm gonna put this out and fuck, we'll just slap the stick on it?
Go to stores like, oh, I've got 5 copies. Can you sell them? And things will be on consignment. Go back the next day. Oh, how'd you go? Oh, yeah, we sold this amount. Can you send some more?
Hectic.
That was how it was,
Yeah.
And Parallax View was creative out of the fact that there wasn't any other channels for us to kind of professionally sell these things, because you could do tapes and then you could take it to record stores and stock 10 tapes there, and then you sell them $10 each, you get $100.
Yeah.
And then get the $100 and make 10 more.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was that easy,
And it was
before GST and everything too, so cash in hand stuff and
the actual slang sort of hand-to-hand situation.
Yeah, Too Short and all that were doing it out of their trunk. We were going to stores, sending it to stores and
packing it up, taping it.
That's it. I used to rack 10-pack tapes in the backpack, like go to Grace Brothers, rack 2 packs, put it in the bag, and walk out, go home, dub the tapes. And the handwrite
The hustle,
each
His fucking hand
cover
styles had to be good.
and send it over. And it's funny because there's a few tapes here and there that were different.
Yeah.
Like would put different songs on it, and then years later, people were like, "Oh, yeah, I got that tape where this and that," and I'd spin out like, "Oh yeah, that was just like a one-off thing. We put an extra song on there."
Bro, that's the coolest shit.
Yeah, it really. I mean, if people have these tapes, it's like a real collector's kind of, item, because most of them were the same, but there was sometimes we'd like, oh, well, fuck this.
So
one
was
up,
that was that you just being like,
Yeah,
like,
it was just us being
just
like
blazing and be like, yo, fuck it, I'm gonna.
Nah, not even blazing, man. It was just us being
just
like,
kicking back.
yeah, just us being like, oh, this would be funny if we put an extra song on there, and whoever gets it would be like thinking it's part of the album, but then they'll talk to other people and like, oh, what about this song? And they're like, what's that?
That's
so
so
that kind of
dope.
Yeah, that kind of
Me taking notes like had random shit to like cassettes.
yeah, that was our train of thought back then. Just to kind of thinking it was funny, firstly, but then thinking like, oh, that's kind of dope.
It's a bit of a niche.
Yeah.
Yeah, hectic, man. What about like then, it started to obviously climb after that, and at what stage, because, you got nominated at like, because back then it was like sort of independent awards, like dance awards and stuff that, because ARIA is before the first ARIA that was for, what did they call it, urban? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was like best urban release.
Urban release.
That was the first year, but previous years they had best dance, and so
there wasn't a category.
Yeah,
there wasn't a category for us.
Yeah, so like Catalyst got nominated for a dance award, even though he's not dance, but I think it was the closest category that he could fit in there.
Yeah, so
and possibly Resin Dogs, I'm not sure, but yeah, it's just there wasn't an industry at that point, like.
So prior to that, and like building up to those nominations at dance awards, because that's still a nod to like, well, you're onto something.
Yeah.
At what point do you feel maybe you thought it was like, I don't know, taken off? Like maybe that you felt like, oh shit, like this could sort of, really sort of be something? Or were you always sort of working the side hustle? Because what else were you doing the whole time?
Playing rugby.
Oh, true.
Yeah, hip hop and rugby were my passions.
Fuck yeah.
I was either going to play for like Australia or Tonga or going to be a rapper, and it just came to a point where I couldn't do both because you really had to invest your time and energy in one of them.
In one of them, true, yeah.
And like, yeah, I hate training, man. Like, so it was kind of like a no-brainer to me.
I'd rather train my voice than.
Yeah, you know, like my dad, I could tell, you know, I was very fortunate. I had very supportive parents.
Yeah.
You know, even though I could see they were like, okay, he wants to make music. Okay, you know, let's support him, see how this goes. And I remember, yeah, my dad, I'm sure my dad was kind of a bit like, because, you know, they come to Australia for us to get, like, you know, go to uni and you know, a lot of, you know, a lot of ethnic minorities, you know, their parents come from a certain area and they come to Australia and hope their kids are going to get great education and great jobs. And, you know, I'm sure it wasn't in their plan for their son to become a musician, you know, because it just wasn't.
It's not secure.
Yeah,
I feel,
especially at that point, like no one was really. I mean, you had like Sound Unlimited posse kind of doing things here and there, but it wasn't like you would look like now. We're like, oh yeah, I'm a rapper and I do this and that.
Yeah.
And so it just wasn't in the scope for my parents to think, okay, you know, you want to be a musician. This could work out, you know.
And rap more particularly, because I remember my dad when I told my dad I rap, there was no white rappers at that stage. He was like, get a job, and then maybe.
That's a big thing. Like, oh, when are you gonna get a real job? And
you know.
But again, you know, like I said, I'm fortunate. I had very supportive parents, and they kind of like let me do it. So yeah, like rugby was the other thing I'm doing, and then I was like, nah, I'm gonna do this music thing. But you know, going back to your question, when we felt it was kind of, I think when we started doing shows, I remember we got booked to play a show in Adelaide. Yeah. And that was our first, outside of Sydney, that was our first show interstate.
But Sydney was sort of like second home.
So because you could drive there. It wasn't really a thing. But Adelaide, you had to fly there.
Yeah.
And so I remember I was sitting next to Daniel, and it was our first show. I think it was at Cargo Barn. I think I had met Hilltop Hoods that night and a few other people. And I just remember sitting next to Daniel and be like, man, can you believe it? These guys are actually paying us to go there and then to play, you know, and for us to stay somewhere, you know. So it was a very big thing, and that felt like, okay, this, you know, if anything, this will be one hell of a fun ride.
For you, though, as well as an MC and seeing that, and you know, like, I don't want to, you know, you're a busy man, you do so much. But as an MC, you've sort of, you know, you've unashamedly taken I don't want to say a back seat, but sort of maybe a side seat as an MC, turned into a outstanding back seat. Yeah, okay. But it's been dope seeing you be a mentor to some of these guys. And how was that transition as an MC, like to sort of start to pass the torch a bit, you know? And
it was. Again, I feel very fortunate that I was able to do something like that on my terms.
Yes.
As opposed to like people going, yeah, maybe you should give that a rest.
Yeah.
You're pretty good, but you know, it's these guys' turn now. Yeah. So you're like doing the show and then seeing so many people coming through and being able to talk to these young artists and, you know, offer advice or feedback. So that whole mentorship kind of just came out of doing the show.
Yep.
And out of me doing it for ages. And then it was only, I think, maybe last year or the year before, that it was the first time being an MC wasn't the priority. And it wasn't like okay, this is what I'm going to do. It just became that.
Organic. Yeah,
organically. And and then I was sitting back thinking about it, and I was like more than cool with it. It was like, okay, you know, obviously it's the time. Like, if there's a chance to be in the studio, I love being in the studio, but that's not my thing. Now, my thing is being in the studio with other people and kind of just vibing.
I watch your Instagram.
Yeah, you know, just kind of vibing with them and being helpful where I can. Yeah, I remember telling my wife that too, like, because I think the tours was the first thing. Like, yeah, I kind of not really into tours. I'd rather be at home with the family.
Yes,
shows and that, and they were the first things to kind of go, and then. Me being the priority was, you know, because, you know, you get to an age where helping other people before yourself is more satisfying.
Yeah.
You know, I think you get to a point where it's all about yourself, and then there's a point where it's like, okay, now it's about other people and helping them. And I remember telling my wife all of this. Like, yeah, you know, I don't want to do this and that. And she was just like,
really?
but yeah, because ever since we've been together, that's all.
Yeah.
Funny story is, we used to see each other. Well, she's from Queanbeyan too.
Yeah.
And then she moved up to Sydney, and then I would do shows, and we'd kind of catch up, and then we'd kind of, you know, start seeing each other. And then she wanted to be like exclusive, and I remember it was like, nah, I'm, you know, I'm doing my thing, I'm doing music, blah blah, blah. And then I remember I was like, okay, let's give it a crack.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And I remember telling her, I was like, all right, we can be together, but you gotta understand that music always comes first. Yeah. I bet she in her mind she's probably going,
Yeah, bro.
all right, we'll see. But she was like, yeah, of course. You know?
Yeah.
And then, you know, obviously things change.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm fortunate to be able to do the radio and do other stuff, mentoring and you know, because I never had that coming up. You know, like I said before, all my mentors, if they weren't family, they were like street dudes.
Mm.
You know, shout out to KOA crew, and you know, and they taught me a lot. But in terms of industry or music, I didn't have any. So, like my man Ricky would say, you know, like be the mentor you wish you had, and that's what I became. And yeah, so I was fortunate that I had all these other things happening, and like yourself, you know, you kind of start diversifying.
Yeah.
You know, and adding value to other things. You know, music will always be a part of us.
Yep.
Always be happy, but then it's like, what else can I do? You know, like
And
using
contribute.
everything that you've learned and all the knowledge you've acquired.
Yep.
It's like it's got to go somewhere, and you know, we're always in touch with what's happening, and the younger generations are always reaching out. You know, and I think that's what separates people like us to a lot of our peers.
Yo.
You know, you grew up and
Yeah.
were like, I'm not fucking with this, that, and
Yeah.
this guy
Fuck
wearing
these
tight
guys.
jeans, fuck, you know.
Oh, shout out to Tight Jeans.
But you know what I mean? Like, I think
Yep.
we're fortunate that we have that kind of personality and genuine love for the culture and music, that we're able to be cool with it not being about us. Because hip hop has always been like, I'm the man.
I'm the man.
Yeah, I'm this
Flex,
and that.
flex,
Fuck
flex,
you.
flex.
I'm better than you. But then you get older, and then you're like, you know what? I'm okay with not being the man anymore.
Yeah,
you know, like,
100%.
and you want to share that love and that knowledge. And I think, like I said, like people like us, you know, is needed. You know, like to kind of just contribute to people's journey.
Yeah, man, and bump up the you know the next cats, and add that power and that knowledge to them, and that sort of goes into really perfect to the next question, because
See, I knew you were gonna nod in.
we planned this before.
MC segue. Nah.
MC segue. So the next one was what was crazy for me, you know, because you know I'm from the West, and what was dope to see is, you know, you started to get involved with people from the West, you know, dropping out there, and you know, I know that you dropped past Street Uni at Druitt, and you know, starting to touch base with some people that probably wouldn't have those opportunities before, and you know, like I'm a massive advocate for West Sydney and the talent and the struggle and the shit that people have to live through on a day-to-day basis, and then for you to sort of, you know, pop your hand in there and go, all right, well, I'm going to have to get familiar and start to shed a bit of light. How did that, because there's a lot of spotlight on West Sydney now. Yeah. There's a lot of eyes, and like that is a massive contribution. You're a massive reason for that, but what sort of made you, or maybe was it artists, or was it just, was it a particular artist, or maybe a couple of people, or it just gradually ended up where you started to, you know, really be that connection with, you know, the west of Sydney, and then, you know, those mainstream opportunities?
Yeah, like when I was coming out, West Sydney was the place, you know, like for b-boys, rappers, writers, crims, you know, like Death Wish Cast was one of the biggest acts at that time. So I was familiar with places like St. Mary's and St. Clair's, and I'd never been there, but I always hear it. You know, like when I started coming to Sydney as a kid, I would go to places like Auburn, because it was one of the only few Tongan places that we kind of knew and would go there and stay. And I thought, oh wow, this is Sydney, you know. Go to what's that fruit market that's kind of around there?
Oh, Flemington.
Yeah, you know, and
Flemington
go there and see kebabs and shit. And I was like, wow, what is this place? This is crazy.
This is not Queanbeyan.
This is definitely not Queanbeyan. You know, and so I was familiar with Sydney and the talent that was coming out. You know, athletes as well.
True.
You know, like being rugby and league and union, and it wasn't like I didn't know. It wasn't like, okay, I'm going to reach into West Sydney and do what I can to help prop it up. It was just the artists that I was into happened to be from there.
Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't till kind of as I was dealing with them, I would kind of discover the intricacies of West Sydney and what people traditionally thought of, you know, West Sydney as, you know, places like Bogan and kind of down and out. And what was that thing that show that came out of Mount Druitt? Struggle Street or something like that?
Oh,
was that what it's called?
Actually, I think that was
Struggle Street. And I just remember a lot of people were up in arms like, man, that's
not us.
It's partly us, but it's not us.
Not us,
you know? And I just kind of and you know, like people like Elijah Yo were already like doing their thing as well. So I knew like artists like that. But when I started working with 1-4 is when I really started, okay, like there's an inner west, there's a southwest, there's a greater west. Okay, these artists from here, from there. And I just started to realize that, wow, okay, like there's some really awesome artists out here. And there always has been, but then I think at this point it was really starting to bubble.
Yeah.
You know, because people like Pistol Pete and Enzo were already kind of
tipping numbers.
Yeah, they're already kind of like numbers are coming up, and then Hef's doing his thing as well, and a couple of artists out there, like 6 Pound was also like doing stuff like early days. But yeah, like working with 1-4 was eye opening, you know, and a lot of it was because, you know, they were like nephews, you know, like cousins, and they were making music because at that point too, like a lot of Islanders were rapping in American accents. True, and when I heard them, they were like, "Oh, okay, they're like the Australian accent, natural accent." They're obviously listening to like grime or drill or something, stuff. You know.
Was that maybe nostalgic for you? Now that I think about it, because like for you, that's like, oh, you know, here's the guys, but they're like Coolism. Their influences are not.
Yeah, well, I mean, like now you mention it's like, that could be part of it too. You know, like in a sea of talent, like these guys really stood out. And you know, shout out to Lux. He connected me to Selly, because Selly put out a single, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm working with kid Selly from 1-4, and I was like, oh yeah, I heard of 1-4, because Ricky put me onto 1-4, Elijah as well, and I had met Manu, rest in peace, Hollowback Beats, at a Tracks event. You know? And he was like, "Oh yeah, I produced for these guys 1-4," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of it."
So you kept hearing it in like little spots
and then I saw I think it was Really Don't Want It or something, and I was like, "Wow, what is this? This is like crazy, something crazy." And shout out to Petrina as well, because you know at this point I had the label running, but I didn't have artists, and I was kind of looking at certain artists. And I was conflicted, like between like, what do they want? Do they want me to try and find the next so and so who's doing well, or do I go with gut feeling? And then Petrina is like, look, you know, take a risk, and then it was like, bang, like 1-4.